President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni led the anti-corruption walk on the 4th of December 2019. Alongside the president were senior government officials, heads of agencies that fight corruption in the country, and ordinary citizens. The jury is still out on whether it was a significant move to kick corruption out of Uganda, and in this case, walk corruption out of Uganda. At the ceremony that followed the walk, the president revealed to the nation that he knows some of the corrupt people. And what he's doing is he's collecting the evidence, and then they will be arrested. Transparency International, under its Corruption Perception Index, indicates that Uganda is the second most corrupt country in East Africa. What strategies can we adopt to ensure that corruption is fought? I'm Iguma Gabriel, and welcome to Face the Citizens. To analyze this issue of corruption and the way Uganda is fighting corruption, we have a panel of 3 at the moment, but we're waiting for one more. We have Mr. David Makumbi. He is Director, Ombudsman Affairs at the Inspectorate of Government. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
We also have Mr. Arthur Oyako. He is Communications and Informations Manager at the Anti-Corruption Coalition, Uganda, commonly known as ACU. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
And on the other end, we have the Honorable Okin Pipi Ojara. He's MP, Chua West Kitgum District. He is the Deputy Chairperson of the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Gabriel, and it is a pleasure to be here.
All right. We're expecting the Honorable Father Lokodo. He is the Minister of Ethics and Integrity. When he arrives, we will introduce him. But you're the only person from government, so we will begin with you. This year, one of the different things we have seen is that during the Anti-Corruption Week, the agencies that are mandated to fight corruption organized the anti-corruption walk. Has this actually achieved what you intended it to?
Thank you very much, Gabriel. I believe that in terms of increasing the awareness about the problem of corruption, the walk achieved the intention, because what His Excellency intended to communicate out there is that this is a problem which is getting out of hand, and that we all need to be part and parcel of this war against corruption. If you remember that one of the central themes for the walk was that it starts with me. And that theme was very important in the sense that a lot of times when you look at the problem of corruption, it is assumed that, oh, the Inspectorate of Government is there, it will be the one to respond, the State House Anti-Corruption Unit is the one to respond, but there is a great deal of responsibility that you and I have as ordinary citizens in Uganda in terms of tackling this monster called corruption. So I believe that in that regard, His Excellency was successful in bringing this problem to the forefront.
All right. Opinions are still divided about the significance of the walk. Mr. Oyako, the civil society perspective of the walk.
From the civil society perspective, I think, well, if the walk was really designed to increase awareness, it may have served a purpose, but the public is fully aware of corruption, and we would have expected more from civil society. It is disheartening that the duty bearers have also crossed over to the lamenting side. I don't know who is going to take on the mantle of corruption at this point if the people who have the power to take the decisions are also doing what we should be doing to create the awareness. What we needed then was not more awareness, we're already aware. We need action. We just need something to be done to show that the government actually cares about the fight against corruption as much as they say they do.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
All right. Mr. Makumbi, you definitely have had the opinions of many around, the implication of the walk. And you know, just hearing from a civil society representative, is government now lamenting as well about corruption?
No, I wouldn't want to look at it as lamenting. I would want to look at it more as a call to join hands, to join hands effectively across the board. Because a lot of times when we are having to tackle these issues that are to do with corruption, you'll find, for example, that, and we've experienced this as Inspectorate of Government, you may take somebody to court over issues that are to do with corrupt behavior. But what happens, usually some of these people may end up coming to court with a small crowd of people who are agitating, and they're saying that their person is being treated unfairly. And it is not understood. Nobody in the crowd has taken time to understand why is this person actually in court. So when we come out and then we are trying to, you know, that we are doing things like the walk, this is all about saying that, look, we are doing something about this, but we also need to know that behind us, we have solidly the support of the citizens, and that the citizens are actively rejecting this whole problem that is called corruption. Because we don't want it at the end of the day to be looked at as a, because a lot of times, you know, when dealing with corruption, it becomes a question of, oh, so-and-so is being victimized, so-and-so is being treated unfairly. So I look at it in that sense, Gabriel.
Honorable, you are a vice chairperson of a committee that the public knows, you know, is there to hold officials to account. You have also seen the steps that have been taken in the fight against corruption. Your assessment of whether we're getting it right?
Yeah, thank you, Gabriel. You rightly said that in the Parliament of Uganda, one of our roles as Parliament and as a Committee of Parliament is to look at the issue of accountability. Coming back to the issue of this anti-corruption work, I did not participate, first of all, because I didn't believe in it. I first wanted to understand where did that idea actually originate from. Because we have institutions that are constitutionally mandated to fight corruption. Was that an activity of the IGG? Was that an activity of the Ministry of Justice? Was that an activity of Parliament? Or whose activity was it? The reason why I'm asking this is because, you know, we are coming to the end of the year. And most people want to account for money balances that is going to happen. I mean, that is in their past. I even want to understand how much money was actually utilized, because the first thing should have been, even for the organizers, to declare how much money they used there and then during the work. That we have been able to use this amount of money to buy these T-shirts. We have been able to use A, B, C, and D. It has cost us this, and therefore the amount of awareness that we are going to create by this work is also this, because we cannot measure the amount of awareness that this thing has actually brought into being. So I don't believe in this. This is just a matter of a political gimmick. And I want to challenge my brother from the IGG that do not let your power to be usurped. You have been mandated by the Constitution to fight corruption. Therefore, this should have been the activity of, if not anything, the IGG. Organizing it, creating the awareness, and making sure people understand that corruption is actually a very bad thing in this country. But the way these organizers came, they pop. It was just a pop. And then I think they invited the president, who came, and I don't know whether the president even knew why he was working. I don't think he knew why he was working. So when the deputy speaker came and challenged, each and everybody was there. That you see, corruption, we are all corrupt. That was a really statement that we are aware that we are corrupt. That was a statement, and nobody has refuted that.
Well, the president
Except-
did.
except
He
he
said
said
for him,
he will be the first
yeah, he will
to-
be the one to cast the first stone because
cast-
he has never stolen anything.
But even me, I want to say that was a political statement he made. But I think he knew inside him that all the people who are gathered there are actually the corrupt people.
Well, he did point
So
at
I
them
remember,
and saying, I know you are
I remember
here.
even Odong Ato said he did not participate because he was fearing if Lightning was supposed to strike, he would have died in the wrong place, but went at the wrong time. So these are issues,
All right.
and I think.
But honorable, on the issue of, it actually creating awareness, because we actually haven't had people speak about corruption in unison the way they did during and after this walk.
Empower the office of the IGG. Let them do their work. Don't actually just organize activities sporadically to account for money or even to steal more money. So if there's an activity of government, the IGG should have been at the forefront with the staff, with the team to mobilize with the civil society.
Okay.
Then we would know that
Right.
actually this is for creating awareness.
All right. Mr. Makumbi is actually from the directorate. Can you believe an MP is wondering where this money came from? Parliament is the one that appropriates. Where did the money for this work come from? Whose budget was this?
Well, in terms of the budgetary issues, and I don't want to seem like I'm avoiding the question, but unfortunately, I'm not competent to comment on the whole budget thing. But the good thing is that what I pick from the honourable's submission is that the questions are valid, and I believe that at the appropriate time, the accountabilities will have to be made, and they will be made public, and the general public will know where exactly these funds are coming from, and whether they've been utilized correctly and efficiently. Because it's process at the end of the day. Once an activity is done, then the accountabilities are made, and subsequently these are the same accountabilities which will find their way to PAC. They will be looked over even by the Auditor General. So I believe in due course the general public will get to know all of these issues.
All right. Mr. Makumbi actually brings up the fact that we have processes. For example, every year the Auditor General comes up with a report on how public funds have been used. These reports are debated in Parliament.
Yes.
Have these tools to fight corruption been used effectively, Mr. Oyako?
Let me address myself to the OIG's report to Parliament. That is an annual ritual that has to happen every 31st day of December. The Auditor General and that office painstakingly goes through thousands of pages to eventually publish a document that very few Ugandans will read, if at all even know that the document exists. Parliament will receive copies, the full copies of these reports, and they will spend a lot more time dealing with other issues other than discussing these reports, because there's been a backlog, and I don't know when this will happen. So the officers mandated to do their work actually exist. Everybody is trying to play their role, but after these reports have been discussed, what is going to happen? Let me look at last year's report, for instance. I know the accounting officer from the Justice Ministry was interdicted, and that process is still ongoing about half a year later. Some monies are trying to be recovered. The recovery is very slow. So while everybody is doing what they're supposed to be doing, the political side of it is not cracking the whip.
All right.
Yes.
All right. We need to take a break at this point. When we come back from the break, one will be joined by the Minister of Ethics and Integrity, but we will also continue the discussion. So let's continue this discussion after the break. Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us here on Face the Citizens. I'm your host, Iguma Gabriel, and today we're looking at the fight against corruption. Having that discussion with us from civil society, Mr. Arthur Oyako, Information and Communications Manager, Anti-Corruption Coalition Uganda. We have from the Inspectorate of Government, Mr. David Makumbi, Director, Ombudsman Affairs, and from Parliament, the Honorable Okin Pipi Ojara, MP, Chwa West Kitgum District. Is also Deputy Chairperson of the Public Accounts Committee. And the Father Simon Lokodo, State Minister for Ethics and Integrity, Office of the President. My panel, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
In the first segment of the show, we did talk about the walk that was. And Honorable Minister, you're the one who hasn't had your say on that. And I'd like to put it this way. One of the new things that we've seen on the block in the fight against corruption is the walk that happened on the 4th. When the public was waiting, for the agencies tasked with fighting corruption and the president to come up with something significant, they came up with this walk that many have described as not really significant. Your view, and then we will take questions from the audience.
Thank you, Moderator Gabriel, and I salute you, viewers. Yes, this here, in joining the international community to celebrate the Anti-Corruption Week, which normally culminates on the International Anti-Corruption Day on the 9th of December every year. The government of Uganda, its institutions, led by none other than His Excellency the President of the Republic of Uganda, decided to demonstrate this here, the shunning, the condemnation, and denunciation of corruption. This work had two functions. One, to tell Ugandans that corruption is a reality. It is with us, and it is knowing how our economy, depriving us of our development and right to growth, and therefore people should be aware it is around. The second one is to show the government ardent and strong political will to condemn it, and therefore with the intention to fight it. Now we said this time, the way to go is not by leaving it to the leadership of government or to the institutions of government. We said in order to eradicate or fight vehemently corruption, we need to involve every single citizen in every and all respective areas. So there you saw the entire government was there, represented by the three arms of government: the Speaker, the President, and the Chief Justice. Legislature, executive, and judiciary. Two, we also saw that everybody who is handling responsibility of the citizenry elsewhere be part of the fight against corruption. So you saw the religious leaders, the cultural leaders, the civil society organizations, the non-governmental organizations, and all members of the deployed corps who are in Uganda. All of us were there, children, elderly, grown-ups, to say if this graft has to get out of our soil, we must move in cohesion, synergy, and really show that we as Ugandans are true to what is indicated in our Constitution, Article 17(1)(I), combat corruption and fight against misuse of public resources.
All right. Father Lokodo, let me read from the NRM Manifesto 2016-2021, the manifesto that the NRM is currently, implementing. The NRM is determined to decisively fight corruption. This is a war that we vow to fight to the end. We will continue pursuing the policy of zero tolerance to corruption through the various legal frameworks and institutions that we have put in place. Does walking show, this seriousness, this zero tolerance that the NRM talked about in its manifesto?
I just told you that walking was only a gesture, but announcing what was intended.
1 year before you finish implementing this manifesto, walking was the way of doing.
Listen, if we had time on that day, I would, as the chairperson of the Interagency Forum, have narrated to you all the achievements that we have been able to realize in these 3-4 years back since the beginning of this term. The Inspector of Government is here, and if he was given time, would tell you how many cases they have handled, how many cases they have prosecuted, how many people have been thrown into jail, and how much money have they recovered.
Okay,
DPP
let's begin with the
and
one.
all other agents of corruption have done a big commendable job.
Okay, let's begin with how much money has been recovered. Your minister seems to have put you in that in a position to answer that question. Yeah. How much money has been recovered? Because at the end of the day, it's not really about talking about the corruption. It is what is done. And have we recovered any money?
Yes, of course, recoveries take place almost, by the way, on a daily. I cannot effectively speak to a figure right now, because that now it depends on whether we are talking annual or whether you're talking over a given period. But what I can say is that recoveries take place in terms of, one, criminal prosecutions. When people are taken to court and it involves a sum of money, the courts may make a sentence which involves actual recovery of money. And then we also have situations where at an administrative level, if it is clear that somebody, so there are some people who will come forward and they will actually confess that, yes, we are responsible for having taken this money irregularly out of the system. There are arrangements under which we recover that money, and these people are actually asked to now get out of government. So recoveries take place also under the leadership code, enforcement of the leadership code, verification, declarations of assets.
Right.
We also try to follow up.
Let's talk about the leadership code just a little. Honorable, you are required to declare your assets. For starters, does anybody come to verify what you put on that form as what you own as an MP?
You know, it's a very disappointing scenario. I'm not sure whether we are doing the right thing in as far as fighting corruption is concerned. I've declared so far two times my assets and liabilities, just on form and in the system. No one has come to verify. So whether I've told a lie or I've told the truth, nobody knows. So what is the purpose of that declaration? It's as good as you should have not done it. It's just a gimmick to say, well, we are trying as much as possible. Maybe 2% of the members of parliament have declared their assets, and So it is. We are simply not serious about this fight.
All right.
And coming back to what Honorable
Lokodo
has said, with all due respect, and he knows it. He knows my stand. As far as fighting corruption is concerned.
You mean you're corrupt?
You know my stand
as
far as fighting corruption is concerned.
Okay.
When you say, this work was just to demonstrate the intention of government to start fighting corruption.
I didn't say start.
You said intention. I wrote it here.
It's okay.
The intention, which means we have not even started fighting corruption. We actually want action on these culprits. These people are there. They are known. We live with them. We stay together with them. We work with them, and we know.
All right. We need to
take action.
We need to get questions from the audience, because you say we live with these people. Honorable Minister, we're going to come back to you. Let's just get 2 questions, and then we'll come to you, Honorable Minister. I'll start with the gentleman at the front in the blue tie.
I've not heard them tell us how these things come about and how they have tackled the root. You see? And I think this is something I'm asking the minister and the inspectorate to address. Where is the root? Personally, I have a feeling that it all comes from the African mindset, that peasantry mindset where we think being successful in life is having a lot of property.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
My name is Namwa Shamira from Makerere University. My question is, if the actions, this goes to the Minister, Father Lukodo. If the actions have been done, why can't we see them? Why is it that you have to you guys, you have to come out and speak about them. Why don't they speak by themselves?
All right.
Why?
Actions usually speak for themselves.
Yes, thank you. My name is Ndusa Paul, and I'm a student at Makerere University. First of all, I want to agree with Father Lokodo that indeed the work was worth it. It was effective. The message was sent. At least the public now is aware that there's something that's about to be done about the work.
Something that's about
to be done about corruption. And now, to me, our president leading the work, it's a commitment. Yes, he has committed himself to fight corruption, and therefore the public is now waiting to see action being taken, their commitment being fulfilled of fighting corruption. Thank you so much.
My name is Kataike Viola, a student in Makerere University. I would like to talk about Minister. You said you're intending, we started fighting corruption. And this work, which was the recent work, I think it was for only people in Kampala, because people in the village didn't even know about it. Yes, some knew, but did they work? No. And besides that, even the Kampala people didn't work. Me personally, I wanted to work, but on inquiring, the t-shirts were being sold. How can I work when I'm not in a t-shirt?
The t-shirts were being sold?
Yeah, someone told me 25. I was like, how will I work? Isn't this corruption? I think it's the government funding it.
All right.
My name is Amon Chiza from Makerere University. I want to pose a question to an officer from the Inspectorate of Government. He said that he can't tell how much money was recovered as of now. So me, I was like saying, he should speak the exact amount that was recovered so that the public can know. Because the Inspectorate of Government is in charge of that, and the people need to know exactly how much was recovered as part of the performance of the inspectorate.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Amon is, if I'm not mistaken, the president of the Integrity Club of Makerere University. It's good to have you and your members here. I'll just take one more question. I'll take the lady actually the lady right in front of you in blue.
Good afternoon. My name is Komhendo Joan Mido, and I work with Fem for Uganda. For me, my question is, what measures are being taken to eradicate corruption? And all you people in front there, have you really sat down and thought about where corruption starts from? Because for me, as a Ugandan, I feel corruption has been normalized. It starts way back from our primary schools, whereby one stands to become a head boy, but they have to bribe other students by giving them sweets. Isn't that corruption? So first think about where corruption begins from, then start fighting it from there.
All right.
Thank you.
Let's go for a break. When we come back from the break, we will have responses to the questions Ugandans have asked. Let's take a break. Welcome back. This is Face the Citizens. I'm your host, Iguma Gabriel. Our discussion today is on the fight against corruption. Our guest, Mr. David Makumbi from the Inspectorate of Government, Mr. Arthur Ayako from Civil Society, Honorable Okin Pipi Ojara from Parliament, but he's also Deputy Chairperson of Public Accounts Committee, and Father Simon Lokodo, the State Minister for Ethics and Integrity. Before we went for the break, we had questions from the audience. Let's respond to those questions. Honorable Lokodo, let's begin with you. Majority of the questions were directed at you.
Thank you, moderator. I want to thank the audience, and especially those who have aired questions for clarification. First one is a very, very pertinent question. Why corruption? What is the root of corruption? And I want to tell you that corruption is only a manifestation of a status of moral decadence. It's not because of lack of anything. In fact, those who are corrupt, or those who are said to be corrupt, happen to be those who already have. So it is greed, selfishness, egoism, disinterest for the others. And contrary to what a patriot should do, if you are a patriot, you will do it all for the others and nothing for yourself. So corruption really is avarice, all for myself and nothing for the others. And until we remove that vice from our hearts, corruption will be here and we shall be hosting it. 2, why are actions against the corrupt and in the fight against corruption not talking for themselves? Yes, of course they do. What how would you want me to do to tell them to talk? These actions are talking so loud and clear. It's only probably where you are that the sound does not reach. Facts are very evident. You go to the anti-corruption court practically every day. Men and women are walked to the gallery. So there's a lot of speech, there's a lot of noise, there is a lot of clamor that the fight against corruption is evident and institutions are hitting hard, including my colleagues here, the members of parliament, the committee of PAC, Public Accounts Committee, both the local government and...
Let's ask him, because Honorable Bibi is from PAC. Is PAC as a committee satisfied that the action against, the corrupt action is being taken?
Yeah, as a parliamentary committee, our work is always advisory to the executive. And normally what we do, we make recommendations in terms of our findings. We do not prosecute, we do not take anybody to court because we are not mandated to do it. But many times when we make recommendations to the executive, which are supposed to come back to parliament again in terms of what they call treasury memoranda, we have seen a lot of gaps and loopholes in terms of the responses from the executive and then also the responses from the judiciary. I think recently we have had challenges with the judiciary as PAC, money worth about 34 billion Uganda shillings, which was handled in a very funny way, diversion, putting into personal accounts and all this other stuff. And the PS of the judiciary is on interdiction up to now. But now we give our recommendation to the executives and the judiciary to take course.
Yeah, but the minister says that there is action and the action is visible.
But if it is visible, then it must be seen. Me, I'm not seeing. Maybe I'm blind, I don't know. Maybe you need to give me glasses.
My brother, yeah. This is a problem.
Let's ask Mr. Makumbi, because there are questions directed at you, but action, because the Inspectorate of Government is actually a key entity mandated with fighting corruption. Why aren't these actions speaking for themselves?
No, I think sometimes the question of action is dependent on how much trouble people and citizens as a whole will take to educate themselves or to get knowledgeable about what is going on out there. There was a question from my friend in the audience about the exact figure of how much money the Inspectorate of Government recovers. I did not want to answer that one because I did not want to commit myself to guessing. But this is also information which, if you took the trouble to go on the internet and look at the Inspectorate of Government website, we report to Parliament twice in a year. And the reports are uploaded on the Inspectorate of Government website. So these are sometimes some of the problems that also are evident in the struggle against corruption. Because if, as citizens, we are not knowledgeable about what is going on out there, corruption thrives in that information vacuum. But if we take the trouble to get that knowledge, it helps.
Mr. Makumbi, just looking at the figures, the comparison between what has been lost and what has been recovered, one thing is for sure, that what has been recovered is far less than what has been lost.
Well, it is an ongoing effort. Sometimes some of those issues may boil down to some of the changes that we are trying to make in the legal environment. For example, recovery of assets is not simply something where you march somewhere and simply just grab somebody's property for the sake of it. It is a legal process, and some of these processes are processes which need to be effectively mapped
You
out.
earlier spoke about admissions, where people actually admit that they misappropriated, or what more would be needed?
Yes, well, for those who admit, we actually make the recoveries. We actually make the recoveries because the people who admit also come forward and they say that we are willing to return this money, and we take it back. And I invite the audience to verify this information from
Mr. Oyako, on recovery.
We've been trying to push for the non-conviction-based recovery approach. It is not flying as high as we want it to because we are tied more towards the conviction-based. The challenge with the conviction-based then is the process has to go through the recovery has to go through the court process. And well, I don't know, but I live in this country, and generally corruption cases take anywhere between 3 years and infinity. So now if...
And we are yet to find out how long.
Yes, and how long. Now, if a case is not going to be disposed of through the court process, how are you going to recover anything?
Okay. Before we go back to the audience, I'd like to hear from the Member of Parliament. What things would you require to be done so that at least Parliament's role in fighting corruption is more effective?
I think generally, as a country, we need to start focusing on the young generation, the younger generation, like Makerere University and other, so that we have, when they get out of that institution and they join the civil service, they're conscious about the issues of corruption. That should be the focus, and we should start it actually as soon as yesterday.
All right.
Because as we speak now, the civil service we have in this country, I think when they hear us talk like this, they just say, you look at this gentleman there, what are they doing? And it has come out in some fora. I remember one of the prominent gentlemen in their party made mention that, when you move to Muyenga, elsewhere, you'll find historic buildings coming up. And who are the owners of those? These are people who are directors in the civil service. These are people who are actually permanent secretaries. These are people who are politicians. They're the ones actually having this. So we need to focus mainly on the younger generation and try to bring them up to speed. I mean, in terms of, so when they join the system, they are very conscious about the issues of corruption. And I was in Ghana recently. I went to a spot where the president of Ghana had initiated, which was a very drastic measure. I don't know whether we can adopt it here in Uganda, but it's a very drastic measure where people were actually put on firing squad. And the president himself shot his own brother in that fire. I went up to that spot. And as we speak now, corruption has gone so low in Ghana to the extent that you cannot believe. So why don't we take some of these actions?
All right, drastic
I would love
measures.
to see Honorable King Pipi Ojara nailing his brother because of corruption. I want to see your father also saying, let us now, do away with this one. So that, the younger generation who are coming up, they take up the responsibility of this country in the right way, in the right direction.
Okay. Let's take just 2 more questions.
Thank you very much. Me as a student from Kiambogo University, my name is Oluko. Now, I have 2 questions to give you.
We can only take 1 question.
We can only pick one. It's okay. I will give you one. About NGOs, there are very many, and they are quiet. We don't know some of them. They have the associations different. They beg money to support themselves. Bazungus bring money here, but they divert the money.
All right.
Why do they divert that money?
Okay, let's ask Mr. Oyako on...
because we don't see much work they are doing. They only want that money to support themselves.
Okay.
Yet
the point has been made.
Are there.
The point has been made, Mr. Oyako, on civil society corruption.
I don't think I am the best qualified person to speak about
Well, when we asked about government corruption, we went to the minister. Now we're talking about civil society. You should be in place to answer.
No, we've had our moments something broke out last year, early this year, and it was really major, but I am happy that at least nothing has followed through, and a lot has been done, especially by one of the major donors, DGF, in trying to clean up the corruption within the civil society movement. Very many organizations lost their funding, and that should, some were actually closed. That at least that is action. At least from our side, we know if you mess with a donor's money, you're going to lose funding and you'll be closed.
All right. But it seems like when you mess with government money, we're yet to see what will be done. We'll take one more question.
My name is Edith Wanyanya from Makerere University. I want us to look at the picture of a tree and the roots. We are trying to find the fruits on that tree, but we're not looking at the roots. What are the roots? Like, what are our belief systems? These days we believe that without inserting something, you can't get anything. And we are based on lies. Whatever we do, we're not based on the truth. We're trying to fight corruption in the government. Right, there is accountability of funds. They should account for the government funds. But what about the people behind here? Someone doesn't have a driving permit, but will have to insert something. The policeman will accept, and then the person will go. That's all corruption.
Okay.
A kid will be told by the mom to wash plates. They'll be like, I'm going to give you my sweet. You help me wash my plates. That's all corruption. So it goes back to our society as the parents, as the upcoming generation. What are we doing to stop the whole thing of corruption?
All right.
What are we doing other than basing? These people are going, they're going to retire, but what have they left behind?
All right.
It will be road. Thank you.
All right, she says these people, I disassociate myself from these people. I am still around. I'm still around. Somebody earlier said that even during the walk, they were being asked to pay 25,000 for the T-shirts. Did you hear that these T-shirts were on sale?
Well, at least personally, I'm not aware. But it's also one of the things that I wanted to speak to, because a lot of times when we see these things happening, people will be like, after all, it's what is going on. I want to encourage Ugandan citizens that please, when you see something unusual happening, the agencies are out there, report, let us know, and then you can hold us accountable if we don't do anything. But we can't be everywhere. So we can't, for example, I personally did not know somebody was being asked for 25,000 shillings for the T-shirt. But if we had received it as a complaint, probably would be able to take some action. So it also comes back again. That's why the theme of the walk was, it starts with me. Yeah? What are you doing on your side to reject corruption?
We need to get a way forward. I will start with you, Mr. Oyako, very briefly, because we're struggling with it, managing the time.
Something happened 2 days ago. One of the football henchos in this country eventually came back to office from a FIFA suspension, and half the country was there to welcome him back to office. And that was a new law. We have begun, we always celebrate corruption, but it was never to that point. Somebody is convicted of a corrupt charge, he goes, serves his time. When he comes back to office, even MPs were there to welcome him back.
We've welcomed people who have stolen money also.
So how are we going to fight this if we're celebrating them?
All right. Okay.
Well,
Mr. Makumbi.
I don't want to go much beyond what I've already said. It's a question of, it starts with me. The people who've gone there to welcome a corrupt person have decided that that's the direction that they want to take. And that's the kind of thing that we need as a society to reject. Anti-corruption institutions, no matter how many you have out there, it matters what kind of society they are operating in. Because if we try to be hard on corruption and yet the society is accepting of the corruption, then the society will end up turning on us, the anti-corruption crusaders.
Are there two actions we can hold you to account on that the inspectorate will be taking, between now and the next anti-corruption day?
No, we pledge to take action on all matters that are raised with us, and we pledge to be accountable for the actions that we take. We are reporting twice in a year. Our activities we report, and we can be judged based on those activities.
All right.
we also pledge to go out and try to sensitize as much as possible and try to influence the thinking out there such that Ugandans can actually take charge of this war against corruption.
All right. One unique thing that actually happened this year, it wasn't really publicized, but 80 schools were debating corruption. In fact, they came to Parliament and debated MPs on corruption and the role of Parliament in fighting corruption. Are these some of the measures you talk about when we say we need to go back, to the younger people?
Yeah, I think that's what we should be able to do as a way forward. And I would like to implore my brother from the IGG office that the focus should be the younger generation, because when you look even in the Bible, when the first man was created, I think nobody won't take responsibility. Adam didn't want to take responsibility. Eve also didn't want to take responsibility. That in itself already is actually corruption. So what I would like to request as a way forward is that we still have an opportunity as Ugandans to address these issues of corruption squarely. And our main focus should be on the younger generation who are coming. As we also face as somebody mentioned there, that we are about to retire, as we face of the younger generation should start showing course. I remember even during these campaigns that we have been having as a younger generation, most of you have run away with money that were given to distribute, to give to whatever. So these are issues that we need to really kind of tighten. If we can tighten up the younger generation who are coming to take up responsibility, then I know we are going to be able to address the issue of corruption.
All right.
Then lastly, on the issue of being uncertain, one thing also that has been eminent in causing this corruption is the uncertainty in future. People are quite uncertain what they are going to become or what is going to happen in the next, in the next future. So if we can actually, as Ugandan, understand that the future is very bright, the future is very okay. So let us work within the perimeters that the future is always very brilliant. And I think if the future is okay, it's guaranteed in terms of our existence after, I don't think this corruption is going to take place. So these are issues that we need to work on.
Father Lokodo?
Thank you, moderator. I think I'm going to take 2 lines. First of all, I want to appreciate 2 members of the audience who were giving the way to manage corruption. In fact, one of them said, society has been permeated by this graft, and we are comfortable with it. We are tolerating it. It's very painful to know that people can even go to the extent of telling you, even if they steal that money, is that money from your mother's coffers? That attitude.
Absolutely.
It means people have resigned themselves, they have left the corrupt to be corrupt, and they don't like to say anything about it. So, as the Inspectorate of Government has put it as a way of fighting corruption, there are 2 steps. One is the proactive one. Therefore, to avoid corruption to happen, by sensitizing the people on the destructiveness of corruption so that people avoid it. And in an effort again to curb corruption, involve, you just said, it begins with me. So let each one of us take the responsibility and really be patriotic citizens, as per the Constitution I just said. A duty of a citizen is to fight corruption and combat against misuse of public resources. Let each citizen do that, and therefore report to institutions of government. The second one, of course, is the reactive. And mine is to coordinate. I coordinate government's efforts in the fight against corruption. I chair a conglomeration of anti-corruption agencies. What I'm going to do, and I want to see, is their commitment to real strike, crack the whip, and let the corrupt get it in pain. I thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much, our panel, and thank you very much, the members of the audience and you who's watching us at home by television. It is the duty of every Ugandan to fight corruption. I hope you are playing your part. Thank you for watching this edition of Face the Citizens. Until next time, bye-bye. Bye-bye.